Hi guys. Okay. Obviously I wish you were here to do the dissection, but instead I'm going to just do a bit of dissection of the kidney and hopefully be able to point out some of the parts. Okay, first thing, the kidney. Of course the kidney is very vascular, so it's in a renal capsule, which is a very tough outer capsule. Then if we look at the kidney from this view, where the ureters and the renal artery and vein connect, this rounded area is called the hilum. And it's not specific just to the kidney. Your lungs have a hilum and other organs. So it's just that indented area where all the attachments are, like the ureter and then renal arteries. Okay, and of course I've just already cut this kidney in half, dissected I should say, the kidney in half. And if we look at the inside of the kidney, and I guess I'll do it this way. So we look at the inside of the kidney. The first part I'd like you to notice is this outer border is called the cortex. And cortex, again, is anatomical for an outer border. But the cortex of the kidney, that's where the main part of the nephrons are. Nephrons are the functional units that start the filtration of the blood and make urine, the byproduct. And so the cortex is that outer border. The inner border is the medulla. Okay, so mostly in the cortex are most of the nephron in the medulla. Now I'm going to start out by talking about how the blood comes in and filters. So the first thing, the blood is going to come in the renal artery, and it's going to go up these structures called renal columns. And the renal columns come up, then the blood goes into a structure called the Bowman's capsule. And in the Bowman's capsule there's a tangle of vessels called the glomerulus. And that's where filtration actually starts. So in the nephron you have the first section, as the blood comes up the renal column, it goes into the Bowman's capsule through the glomerulus. The blood goes back out through the renal vein, but the filtration that started to filter out of the blood in the glomerulus then goes out to the proximal convoluted tubules, then it goes down through the loop of Henle, then the distal convoluted tubule, and then into the collecting ducts. Now, the loop of Henle and the collecting ducts are in the medulla, and specifically in these fan-shaped guys called pyramids, the renal pyramids. And so the collecting ducts are in the renal pyramids, and that's where the filtration goes into. And then it goes at the bottom of it, it's just called papilla, the collecting area. Then you have what's called the minor calyx. Then a couple of those join and become the major calyx, and then finally it goes to the renal pelvis, and then the actual, that's urine by now, so it goes out the ureter down to the urinary bladder. And so there again, if we trace the filtration of blood, the blood comes up through the renal columns. Renal columns are in between the renal pyramids. You have a pyramid, then a column, then a pyramid, then a column. So the blood comes up the renal column into that glomerulus, which is in the Bowman's capsule, and then it's going to go out of there. Blood goes back out the renal vein. The filtration goes into the proximal convoluted tubule, and you saw that tangle in the diagram, then through the loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and finally into a collecting duct. And many nephrons are attached to each collecting duct. And then it starts to filter down through the renal pyramids and the collecting ducts to the papilla, then the minor calyx, major calyx, renal pelvis. That collects everything from the kidney, and then it goes out the ureter. And if we look at this little guy, I don't know if you can see the parts any better. Maybe this side is a little bit better. But there again, you have the cortex area, the outer border, the medulla, and in here you have the renal pyramids, and in between them the renal columns. I have yuts on my pointer. Anyway, and the renal, so it goes up the renal columns and renal pyramids, and that's where that whole collection system is. And this one has a little more, ureter almost cut off on it. But that's the structure of the kidney, and I hope this helped.